Have you ever wondered why Draco Malfoy hated Harry Potter so much? What if his hatred wasn't just petty jealousy, but something much deeper? In today's video, you'll discover the real reasons behind their legendary rivalry. Throughout the entire series, Harry Potter is portrayed as the ultimate hero. That makes sense. After all, the early books were meant for children, and a complex, morally ambiguous protagonist wouldn't have fit the tone. Draco, on the other hand, became the perfect antagonist. Arrogant, cruel, and cowardly, he seemed to exist purely to make Harry's life miserable. Tom Felton's brilliant performance only solidified this image. But was Draco really just a spoiled bully? Or was there more to his animosity toward Harry? The truth is, Draco had every reason to resent him. A childhood shaped by bloodlines. To understand Draco's hatred, we need to look at where he came from. He was the only son of Lucius Malfoy, a wealthy, pure-blood wizard who once served Lord Voldemort. His mother, Narcissa Black, came from an equally prestigious magical family. From childhood, Draco was taught that he was special, superior to Muggle-borns and those with lesser heritage. With no siblings to challenge him and parents who reinforced his pride, Draco grew up believing he was destined for greatness. By the time he arrived at Hogwarts, he was already entitled, arrogant, and used to getting his way. But was that enough to make him despise Harry Potter? Probably not. After all, Draco had his own circle of friends. His true resentment came from something far more personal: the first betrayal. Before he even set foot in Hogwarts, Draco had already heard of the boy who lived. His parents speculated that Harry would grow up to be an even greater dark wizard than Voldemort himself. They were eager to see what kind of ally or rival he might become. Draco's first encounter with Harry was in Diagon Alley. Not knowing who he was speaking to, he treated him politely, even trying to befriend him later on the Hogwarts Express. He reached out first, offering his hand and an alliance. Harry's response: public rejection. It wasn't just a refusal, it was a humiliation. Harry chose Ron Weasley over him, laughed at Draco's words, and made it clear that he wanted nothing to do with the Malfoys. For Draco, who had been raised to believe in status and legacy, this was a crushing blow. It was the beginning of their rivalry and a wound that never quite healed. A lifetime of unfairness. As if the rejection wasn't enough, Hogwarts quickly became a nightmare for Draco in one particular way. No matter what he did, Harry always stole the spotlight. Draco was smarter, more disciplined, and more skilled in many areas. Yet despite his efforts, Harry always received praise, attention, and admiration. Not because he worked harder, but because he was famous. Professors, except for Snape, favored Harry. Students idolized him. Even when Draco outperformed him in academics or Quidditch, it never seemed to matter. For a boy raised to believe in prestige and superiority, this was unbearable. The frustration built up, feeding into his resentment, a life defined by expectation. Unlike Harry, who had the freedom to choose his own path, Draco was bound by family expectations. He didn't just dislike Harry, he feared him, because if Harry won, that meant the Malfoy legacy was crumbling. His father expected him to uphold their bloodline's reputation. His mother pressured him to be the perfect son. His entire world revolved around pleasing his family and living up to their ideals. So when Voldemort returned, Draco wasn't just fighting for his own beliefs, he was fighting to survive. Unlike Harry, he never had the choice to be a hero. The redemption that almost was. For all his cruelty, Draco wasn't heartless. Despite years of rivalry, he hesitated when given the chance to expose Harry to Bellatrix Lestrange. He wasn't as ruthless as his father had wanted him to be, and in the end he rejected Voldemort's cause entirely. I'm not saying Draco was secretly a good person, or that Harry was the villain, but if you take a step back, it's clear Draco had plenty of reasons to hate Harry. And in his position, many others would have felt the same. Have you ever wondered what would have happened if Harry had accepted Draco's hand that day on the train? What if their rivalry had never started? In today's video, we'll dive even deeper into the complicated emotions behind Draco Malfoy's hatred for Harry Potter. Draco wasn't just jealous, he wasn't just a spoiled rich boy who loved to torment others. His feelings toward Harry were layered, built on years of disappointment, pressure, and fear. To truly understand him, we need to look beyond his arrogance and see the boy who lived in the shadow of his own expectations. From the moment he arrived at Hogwarts, Draco was supposed to be the best. He had been raised to believe that his bloodline made him superior, that his name alone should earn him respect. But in one day, Harry Potter shattered that illusion. Rejected, humiliated, and forced into a rivalry he never expected, Draco had no choice but to play the role everyone assigned him. If he couldn't be Harry's friend, he would be his enemy. At first, it was just childish bullying, name-calling, petty tricks, snide remarks in the corridors. But the more he watched Harry succeed, the more bitter he became. Every year it got worse. First, Harry became the youngest Seeker in a century. No one had even considered Draco for that spot despite his skill. Then came the Triwizard Tournament. Draco, who had spent his whole life training in magic, wasn't even eligible. But Harry, the boy who never seemed to put in the effort, was chosen. Again, all eyes were on him. By their 6th year, it was no longer a game. Draco wasn't just jealous, he was desperate. His father had been imprisoned. His family was on the edge of ruin. Voldemort had given him a task that was impossible to complete. For the first time in his life, Draco was truly alone. He had spent years hating Harry, but now he was too exhausted to fight. He barely spoke to him. He didn't taunt him. He didn't care. He was too busy trying to survive. And then in the bathroom, with his back against the wall, wand shaking in his hand, it happened. He had finally let his guard down. He had finally broken. Tears ran down his face as he struggled under the weight of his mission. He was no longer a proud Malfoy, no longer the arrogant Slytherin prince. He was just a terrified boy, trapped in a life he never chose, and Harry saw it. For the first time, Harry looked at Draco and didn't see an enemy. He saw fear, he saw pain, he saw a reflection of himself, someone forced into a fate they never wanted. But in the end, they weren't the same, because Harry had people who loved him, people who stood by him, people who chose him, not because of his name, but because of who he was. Draco had no one. Even his so-called friends turned away when he truly needed them. Crabbe and Goyle were nothing without their blind loyalty. Pansy Parkinson cared more about status than about him. The moment he faltered, the moment he showed weakness, they left. That was the difference between them. It wasn't just that Harry had power, it wasn't just that he was famous, it wasn't even that teachers favored him or that he always seemed to win. It was that Harry had what Draco had always wanted.
Real friendship.
Draco could have had it. That day on the train, things could have been different. If Harry had shaken his hand, if they had sat together in the Great Hall, if he had ended up in Gryffindor instead of Slytherin. But that's not how their story went. Draco spent years resenting him. Years building walls around himself, convincing himself that he didn't care, that he didn't need anyone. But in the end, it was never true. Because when the final battle came, Draco Malfoy did not stand with Voldemort. He did not fight for his father's cause. He chose to leave. He chose to run. Some might call it cowardice, but maybe, just maybe, it was something else. Maybe it was the first real choice